right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Snap Material Podcast. We dropped our first 3 episodes fairly quickly. I think it was last week, and we kind of put this one on the back burner, but we didn't forget. We have a top 5 for this month, and Evan Bevins is here to tell you exactly what this top 5 is. Evan, let the people know.
Wait, what are we doing? No, we are going with the snap cards that work well together in spite of having little or no comic history. And here I'm thinking of you, Morbius and MODOK, law firm you don't want to go to. But we thought we would take the cards that work well together in the game that we would like to see show up in the comics. The top 5 snap team-ups we want to see in comics. If Marvel's out there listening, as I'm sure they are, probably the only people that listen to us more than Marvel are the folks at Second Dinner. You know, Jesse Starcher and Evan Bevins present Marvel Snap Team Up. It's right there. We could probably use an artist. Although we know some guys. Just hit us up at Snap Material, at Evan_Bevins. You guys know how to get in touch with us.
That's right.
But hey, don't just take our word for it. Listen to our ideas, because we got a top 5 here.
Yeah. So I'll just do full disclosure here. I came up with 5 pretty easily. I actually had a list more than 5. I was like, okay, some of these work very well. They're great combos. There might be 1 or 2 on here that are a personal preference to me. There
are some people who might not agree that Squirrel Girl is the greatest Marvel superhero of all time, personal preference.
And they could all be wrong.
Yeah, but that's okay.
That's all right. The other thing I did was I, of course, involved artificial intelligence to come up with a plot of a comic. When I give what I want to see in comics, I also have an AI-driven plot. It didn't shy away. Every single time I threw a team down there, it was like, okay, here's 10 ideas for a story. And so I picked the best one. And then when I get to my number 1, I feel like I would do it a disservice so I didn't read all 10 plot ideas.
Okay.
Because it was actually pretty good.
I feel like I have missed an opportunity to show that I could beat the AI. But, I have some ideas, but that's about it.
We've joked all the time about how, this combo happened in a comic, and I guarantee you it took me a couple seconds, like in some of mine, just be like, okay, well, I know the story that would have to probably be told because these 2 characters are together. But yeah, so with that being said, if you are ready, if you have your list ready to go, I'll go ahead and start out. So number 5, I'm not ready. Okay, here we go. Number 5 for me is actually a possibility. It has been done. And if I would have had more time, I could have researched just to see. But I feel like these 2 would have teamed up in a comic already, specifically in the 90s. And that would be Deathlock and Wolverine.
In Wolverine and the X-Men, which was the comic that got me back into the X-Men for a while, when Wolverine reopened the school and was the headmaster because Cyclops was too militaristic, Deathlock was a part-time instructor there. They had teamed up in X-Force.
Okay.
There was some kind of storyline that involved Deathlocks, and one of the Deathlocks stayed a member of X-Force. So I can't think of a specific Wolverine Deathlock team up. I'm like you. I figure it had to have happened in the 90s. I do remember that Deathlock kind of became like a Step X character during that era.
Okay, that makes sense.
Deathlock.
Yeah. What first went through my head was like, okay, there's got to be some type of a story that involves some kind of project that both of these 2 were a part of, some shady government project. The first thing I thought of was like, oh my goodness, Weapon X. Is there a way to tie Weapon X into it? All right. Here is ChatGPT's suggestion. My favorite one that I think you'll know immediately why. Time-twisted conspiracy. The plot point. Deathlock uncovers evidence that a new Weapon X program has ties to a dystopian future where Weapon X's experiments led to global domination. The experiments being conducted now are the first steps toward the apocalyptic future. Wolverine's fear of repeating past mistakes collides with Deathlock's desperation to change the future. The story could involve hints of time travel, with Deathlock providing key insights into how certain events must unfold to present disaster. Sounds an awful lot like Terminator to me. But yeah, I want to see how if Weapon X is doing something, Wolverine is going to be involved.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, yeah, write it. Bring it out. Marvel Snap Team Up, issue number 1.
Whether their paths have crossed in comics or not, I don't think they usually work together as routinely as Deathlock and Wolverine do in Marvel Snap.
That's true. where it's usually Deathlock destroying Wolverine.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Usually in the comics, you think of Colossus and Wolverine for the fastball special. And in Snap, it's like, hey, Deathlock, go blow up Wolverine. No, it's better for everybody that
way. Make him go somewhere else. Okay, no problem. All right. Well, that's my number 5. What's your number 5?
My number 5 is a combination I think we've both used. I don't know exactly how this would work out in a comic story, in part because one of these characters, as much as I love the comics, I'm kind of a little fonder of his movie incarnation, but it's a trio: Wong, Gambit, and Odin.
Ah, yes. I did at one point have on my list a Wong combo. And I was like, oh my gosh, how would I write this story? Because it would be pretty freaking wild.
Wait, I got it. Okay. So, Wong in the comics isn't, I mean, he's a magic user, but he's kind of like Doctor Strange's Alfred or his Jarvis,
Right.
You don't really use the term manservant much anymore, but he's like, he's Doctor Strange's right-hand guy. He's not a sorcerer supreme, but he's a smart dude who does what needs to be done so Doctor Strange can do what he has to do.
Right.
Maybe something's stolen from the Sanctum Sanctorum. Maybe Gambit even steals it, although Gambit usually has a bit better control. Maybe this could be one of those flashback stories that's all the rage.
Yeah, right.
So Gambit steals something from the Sanctum Sanctorum, realizes maybe he should not have stolen that. So he and Wong go to track it down. And wouldn't you know it, there's a little Asgardian stuff in the mix. Maybe Odin left something on Earth that he wasn't supposed to. Odin could get into trouble back in the day. Maybe Wong, Odin, and Gambit have to reluctantly work together to restore this artifact where it ought to be. And they all drop the ball a little in creating this circumstance.
I like it. Beautiful.
There you go. Wong, Gambit, and Odin.
I like it.
The new Warriors 3.
All right, then. So that takes you to your number 4.
That's right. This is another one that, again, it's a character I like better in the movies than in the comics, although in this case, he started in the movies. I'm not sure what they've done to poor Phil Coulson in the comics. At one point, they hid the fact that it was Coulson by giving him the nickname Cheese.
What was it?
At one point, Cheese.
Okay.
When they introduced Black Nick Fury, the original Ultimate Nick Fury was just Mark Miller or somebody was like, what would be cool is if Samuel L. Jackson was Nick Fury. That was it. And then when the movies took off, they were like, we need a Samuel L. Jackson-esque Nick Fury in regular continuity. So they had this whole story. He was the son Nick Fury didn't know he had, or didn't know Nick Fury was his dad. And he had this army buddy who was nicknamed Cheese. And you're like, what's the deal with Cheese? And they're like, oh, actually, his name's Coulson.
And
then at some point, he was like president in an alternate timeline, but he was an agent of Mephisto or something. I don't know. I just like Clark Gregg as helpful Agent Coulson teaming up with the Collector.
Boy.
In the comics, they did something where Coulson knew all this stuff about heroes, was an expert on heroes, and would pick the right hero to help out on a SHIELD mission. I don't think that concept lasted too long. But one of the things that's most enduring that people remember about Coulson from the movies and informs his Dan Hip variant is his Captain America collector cards.
Oh, yes.
So imagine a story perhaps set between the movies and episodes in the Marvel Cinematic Universe or adapted into the comic book realm where the collector decides, hey, those really are rare cards, and he wants them from Coulson, and Coulson's not interested in selling them, but then somebody steals them anyway.
I love thinking about the Collector actually being like a baseball card collector or something along those lines. And yes, this works.
I haven't worked all the details out, but, Coulson's like, look, if it's that important to you, I just want to find them. And, if they'll be in your collection, maybe, I've met Captain America. And somehow he and this cosmic dude who, I think of him as Benicio del Toro because I honestly haven't read a lot of comics with the Collector, but just that one commonality that, Coulson has these cards. Collector is a collector of cosmic proportion. Like to see those two team up.
I like that. Should be interesting. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. For number 4, I'm going to give you the title of the story, and then I'll go into the plot, and then you'll be able to figure out the two. Okay. The title's going to throw you off, though, the idea of the plot here, which is a predicted apocalypse. Sounds very much like the first one we were just talking about. But Uatu warns Legion that one of his personalities will trigger an apocalypse. However, the personality in question has not yet emerged, and Legion struggles with whether to suppress himself entirely to prevent the disaster. So Uatu and Legion, and now I don't use them, Legion can go in any deck as far as I'm concerned, but if it's a specific location that's being featured, then Uatu is usually in my deck and Legion is in there too. Uatu's obviously giving me the heads up on what to expect here next. What is it? I think it lets you see the first and the last location. Is that what it is?
Second and third.
Second and third. Okay. So it lets you see what those locations are going to be. And of course, if it's a featured location that I like, I'm going to use Legion. I definitely like the idea of Legion having a personality because he's crazy. So Uatu being like, just like in, what was the show we were watching? And the Watcher showed up and you were like, okay, the Watcher's there. This is a big deal.
I remember we were talking about
Civil War,
where the Watcher showed up and you're like, wait a minute, this isn't supposed to be cosmic.
It's a pretty big deal. So Uatu and Legion, and I like the idea of a predicted apocalypse. So at some point I will get off this whole predestination time travel stuff, I promise. And maybe I'll do that with number 3.
Okay.
Number 3, a new herald. Galactus arrives on Earth, but instead of consuming it, he offers Wave the role of his new herald.
There you go. That almost made my list.
Yeah, dude. I mean, we joked about that for probably months on this podcast. He believes her connection to water makes her uniquely suited to navigate planets rich in life-sustaining resources. We always talked about Wave being the herald of Galactus, and what was funny was the thing gave me 10. I didn't say make a story about her being the herald. It was the first story it came up with. Makes sense. I mean, that's just obvious. We've seen that combo so much in Marvel Snap for the longest time that it became you're the first one, I think, that coined Wave as the new herald of Galactus on the podcast. So yeah, there you go. I mean, Marvel Snap team up. It's Wave and Galactus, baby. Let's see it. Anyway, that was my number 3. What's your number 3?
Okay. All right. My number 3 is another combination we have referenced on here a few times. Even though I don't usually like comics with one of these characters in it, I'd be curious to see the team up of Silver Surfer and Sebastian Shaw.
What brings these two together?
Shaw does like power, and the power cosmic is pretty high up there. The thing that I thought of was not necessarily a story, but just the contrast between these two guys. Because the Silver Surfer is a guy who's traveled all over the galaxy, has seen countless worlds, and yet is fascinated by life and the beauty of Earth. And even though he's, soared the spaceways, he can be fascinated by the small things on an individual planet. And Shaw's a dude who has, with his wealth and power, just about everything you could want on a planet, and he just wants another buck. I mean, he's a mutant who made his money building Sentinels. He betrayed Krakoa in the Krakoa era and then promptly betrayed Orcus right back because somebody connected with Krakoa offered him some more money. He has no loyalty to anything. He has no sense of wonder. He's a pretty shallow dude. Whereas you have the Silver Surfer who, after he was no longer stuck on Earth by Galactus's decree, can pretty much go anywhere and do anything and appreciates all life has to offer. So it will be interesting to see him, forced to hang out with Sebastian Shaw and be like, why are you like this? And Shaw, like, I don't understand why you're not just, taking over planets right now. So I don't know why they would be together, but I know that they would hate it, and that would be entertaining.
Yeah, I'd agree. They are stuck together by some unfortunate circumstance. That's got to be what brings them together. Power
absorption ability gets, somehow they cross paths, and Shaw gets linked to the Surfer's power cosmic, which is almost an endless energy source. I I don't know. Maybe
no, wait. This takes place. Well, I don't know how we could do this. It takes place back when a young Sebastian Shaw used to ride the waves. One day he comes across this beautiful silver surfboard. Next thing you know, surfer's like, where did I place this? I can't remember where I left this thing at. To me, my board, and for some reason it won't go. Actually, it does go, but it brings Sebastian Shaw in tow. There you go. All right, I like it. All right, so then that takes you to number 2.
Number 2. I am pretty sure these guys have never crossed paths before. I don't always have both of these cards together, but usually if I have one, I have the other. Does that make sense? One of them can be used on their own, but if I have it, I've probably got the second card.
Okay, gotcha.
That is Iron Lad and Howard the Duck.
Oh my goodness. I almost had a Howard the Duck combo on here. Iron Lad, I don't have Iron Lad, so he wasn't first in my mind. But yeah, I can see the possibilities here.
They make sense in the game because Iron Lad copies the text of the card at the top of your deck, and Howard shows you what that is. Especially in Living Iron Slot, I'm always keen to know exactly what Iron Lad is going to be copying, because even if you have him in the deck, you don't always have Howard available. Sometimes he copies the powers of a rock. So in the game, that's very useful. But how would these guys work together in a comic? Do you remember the Iron Lad story?
Young Tony Stark, right?
No, it's young Kang the Conqueror.
That's right. This is from Young Avengers.
Yes, he found out he was going to grow up to be Kang the Conqueror, and he went back in time to get the Avengers to help him. He was rebelling against his grown-up destiny. So it's cosmic, it's time travel, and then we have Howard the Duck. And
who just wants to make it through Tuesday.
And who, is a good dude, has a moral compass, but he's also kind of a pessimist. And I mean, I just imagine somehow, these two cross paths, and this kid who's going to be one of the greatest threats history and the world has ever known is relying on grumpy old Howard to snap him out of the inevitability of the future and destiny. And Howard's like, dude, sometimes the crap just happens, I love the idea of Howard wanting to be better, but, he's just like, come on. And and Iron Lad, like, hey, we gotta do something. We gotta alter destiny. He's like, yeah, you know what, kids, sometimes it just doesn't go your way. It's another odd couple. Howard would want to do right by him and help him, but also might not be the best guy for the job.
Right.
So I use them together frequently in Snap. I would like to see them share the page and see Howard, try to save this kid from a future he never made.
I see. I knew it was going to work its way in there somehow. I knew the catchphrase was going to be there. All right. Good deal. My number 2. I'll give you the title, and then I want you, Evan, to try and guess the combo. Okay. All right?
All right.
Mutant Vampire War.
Well, it'd either be Morbius or Dracula.
You're on the right track.
Okay, Mutant Vampire War. How about Dracula and Apocalypse?
That is exactly right. Dracula begins turning mutants into vampires, creating a powerful army of superpowered undead. Apocalypse, seeing this as a corruption of mutant potential, declares war on Dracula's forces. Sounds like a great book. I mean, call it Mutant Vampire War. I almost wondered if that was actually a story at one point, because I could see it. I know that the X-Men have tussled with Dracula in the past.
There was a Mutants versus Vampires comic, but I don't think Apocalypse was involved in that.
All right. Well, yeah, I mean, we've both seen Apocalypse and Dracula on the field in play. And those two teaming up, of course, they're not exactly teaming up in my story, but it's a story nonetheless that involves the two. And
hey, I mean, if Dracula is turning mutants into vampires, Apocalypse would have to see if that hybrid species is the strongest and therefore deserving to survive.
True. That's true. Survival of the fittest. That is my number 2, a combo that deserves a story being told. And now for my number 1. and I'll make this quick. I know I said I was going to go through all 10, and I'll go through all 10 really quickly. One of them is called a secret Stark weapon. The problem is that you could probably figure out the first part of the combo, and then for the second part, you'll have no
Iron
idea.
Man.
Oh, close.
Oh.
Yeah.
War Machine.
Nope.
Rescue?
Nope. Specifically think Stark weapon.
Hulkbuster?
Hulkbuster. All right.
Okay.
Here we go for my number one, and we will quickly go down through these titles. Deadpool steals the Hulkbuster.
Oh, nice.
Deadpool's first one is Deadpool sneaks into Stark Tower for a personal errand and accidentally stumbles across the Hulkbuster armor thinking it's the coolest toy ever. He borrows it for a joyride. Pretty simple. Then we have number two, a Hulkbuster gone rogue. The Hulkbuster armor becomes sentient due to a glitch or tampering by a villain and begins rampaging. Deadpool, initially caught in the suit as a prank, becomes its unwilling pilot and has to figure out how to stop it from destroying everything. Number three, the Hulkbuster versus Deadpool's enemies. Deadpool, on a mission to collect the bounty, uses the Hulkbuster armor to take out a group of powerful villains like Juggernaut or Omega Red. However, the suit's AI keeps overriding his wilder impulses, making the mission harder. Number four is Deadpool protects Bruce Banner. A villain wants to kidnap Bruce Banner. Knowing they can control the Hulk, Deadpool is hired to protect Banner, but borrows the Hulkbuster armor to make his job easier. Then we have a cosmic threat such as a rogue Celestial or Galactus targets Earth. The Avengers are off-world, so Deadpool volunteers to pilot the Hulkbuster to save the day. Weaponized Deadpool. A villain hacks into the Hulkbuster while Deadpool is inside it. Turning the armor into a weapon aimed at the Avengers, Deadpool must fight against the suit's control from the inside while causing unintentional destruction. Then we have a Deadpool customized Hulkbuster. After a successful mission in the armor, Deadpool decides to customize it to suit his style, adding taco launchers, a paint job with his face on the chest, and absurd features like inflatable duck decoys. When a real crisis arises, he must use his ridiculous version of the Hulkbuster to save the day. That's pretty funny. The Hulkbuster, number 8. The Hulk goes on a rampage. Bruce Banner asks Deadpool to stop him. Apparently, Bruce and the Hulk are separated here. Deadpool accepts, not realizing how hard the job will be. Number 9, a secret Stark weapon. Tony Stark has hidden an experimental weapon inside the Hulkbuster, and Deadpool accidentally activates it. Now villains and heroes alike want to capture Deadpool and the suit before the weapon destroys everything. And then number 10, Deadpool saves the Hulkbuster. The Hulkbuster armor is damaged and abandoned during a fight. Deadpool decides to rescue it, thinking it's alive. He works to repair it, inadvertently uncovering a villain's plan to destroy the Avengers. It took a while for me to figure out what my number 1 was going to be. And I don't know if it was a situation where I was like, okay, you kind of got to balance, like, what's a really good combo and what's a really good story. Dracula Apocalypse was up there for me at first. And then I was like, you know what? Deadpool Hulkbuster would probably be entertaining. And then when I threw it at ChatGPT, I was like, okay, so yeah, that's some pretty funny stuff. Some of that stuff would be fun to read. But yeah, so Deadpool Hulkbuster, there you go. My number 1 combo I want to see in comics. Evan Bevins, take it away.
Well, I know I started this off with a 3-person team up, and this one might not fit into the mold of our made-up Marvel Snap team-up series, might even be a limited series or series of its own. Disparate group of heroes, villains, and in-between pulled together by a higher cosmic power for mysterious and unknown reasons, a mission that maybe even all of them don't fully realize what's at stake.
Oh, boy.
But you could see characters like Mockingbird, the Blob, and Loki sharing a Quinjet, all under the order, and many, many others, all under the orders and string pulling of Arishem. Now, the first title I came up, all I have on my list is Arishem's Crew, because what I really wanted to call it was Arishem's 11, because it's like there's a 12-card deck, Arishem, and 11 other cards, except the whole point of Arishem is you have more than 12 cards.
Yes, dang it.
There's Mockingbird, Quinjet, Loki, Blob. Those are all folks that I usually have in my Arishem decks, and then a lot of times I'll change them around to fit the need of a bounty or just something I want to try out. But even when you have those plans, Arishem brings in a whole bunch of other characters you weren't expecting.
Oh, yeah.
In the old Eternals saga over at Magazines and Monsters, you can hear me and Billy and Ed cover for roughly 17,000 hours. There's this vast conspiracy going through the years that the Eternals are up to, or the Celestials are up to, and Arishem is leading them, and Thor, and even the Eternals. Nobody quite knows what's going on, and it involves all these characters and everything. It's more than a heist, but you have all these disparate characters coming together, clashing, working together, and maybe you don't know what's going on. It seems like they finally figure out what's happening, but it's overwhelming, and Arishem's not giving them any answers. He's a 7 cost, but he's only 7 points. They don't know what to do. Just when all is lost, M'Baku jumps in and saves the day.
I knew it.
My other go-to
Arishem. Oh my goodness. I can't wait.
I don't fully know how it would work, but yeah.
Oh, that
could even be like the underlying subplot tying the various Marvel Snap team-ups together. It was all some sort of cosmic plot by Arishem.
Oh my, it's an event. This is an event comic, sir. Look, if there is anything that deserves, a 12-issue arc with M'Baku in issue 12, that's the guy that does it all and turns the tables. He's the man of the hour. That would be so good. Great stuff right there. I love it. That right there, ladies and gentlemen, our top Marvel Snap combos we wish to see in comics. There you go, folks. That was a lot of fun. Evan, why don't you go ahead and plug some stuff? What do you got going on over there at Asterisk 51?
Well, with the holidays, not as much as usual, but I'm trying to get back on that with some Free Comic Friday, maybe finally finish those amalgam issues. There's always a Dollar Tree Cinema out there waiting to be revisited, weighing the question of, did I get my money's worth with $1.25 for this DVD or Blu-ray? And then at the time we're recording this, I did have another episode pop up on the Magazines and Monsters feed where Billy D and I talked about an issue of X-Men that I first read in a classic X-Men reprint that has Cyclops crossing paths with Man-Thing and taking on Nightmare's cousin, Despair.
Oh boy, Despair. Wow. Well, that sounds like a fun listen. I'll have to be tuning into that for sure. At some point, we have to go back to Booster Gold. We have we have not finished that series. I know we just did. Last one we did was Volume 3.
2.5, because we threw in the Rick Remender issues that didn't get in one of the collections. So we got to finish Volume 3 because the Batgirl Killer Moth storyline, I think that picks up.
Good deal.
We got to take care of that one.
2025. Look out, ladies and gentlemen. That's going to be a happening. As for myself, on the Source Material Comics podcast feed, you should be able to find, if you go to the YouTube, you should be able to find just about anything that's dropped, either in Unspoken Issues or Source Material in the past 3 years, I think. Check that out. Recently, today's Monday, and we aired, it was me, Dean, and Derry. We discussed JLA Year 1, 12 issues.
Well, looking forward to listening to that one.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. As far as Source Material goes, I think myself and Mark Radlich are in the middle of City of Bane. And we just did our second part, and I think next week will be our third drop, finishing out the City of Bane. So keep an eye out for that. That's it. With that being said, we are getting out of here. That's Evan Bevins. I'm Jesse Starcher. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you most likely next month. Or watch out for a battle. Should be on YouTube. Have a good one. Bye-bye.